Welcome back to the Gallant Goblin. I'm Theo, and today we're looking at the Icons of the Realms pre-painted miniature set for Monster Menagerie 3. This set came out in the early spring of 2018 and features 44 miniatures. This set is a little bit unique in that it includes the extra large, technically huge creatures that only a couple of the Icons of the Realm sets include, and this one also had something controversial called rare variants, and we'll talk more about that in the conclusion. This set really supports Volo's Guide to Monsters and gives you a lot of variety in your Monster Mini collection, and it supports also the Storm King's Thunder adventure with a lot of giants represented. So let's take a look at each one. Magmin are small, grinning, mischievous spirit elementals that can be summoned into the material plane and trapped within a black magma shell. Their instinct is to set everything around them alight, and their pyromania is only controlled by the arcane power of their summoner. If absolutely everything must be burned in a fire, summoning a pack of Magmin is the way to do it. Magmin can set themselves ablaze as a bonus action, but even in their dormant state, small flames still burst from their form. Magmin have a challenge rating of 1/2 and can be found in the basic rules. Magmin appear as a result of Conjure Elemental and Conjure Minor Elemental spells, and in the adventures Storm King's Thunder, Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, Tomb of Annihilation, and Princess of the Apocalypse. Mephits are small, extraplanar creatures that resemble imps. They are generally linked to various elemental planes, and each uses a corresponding breath weapon that does minor elemental damage to ward off potential foes. Magma Mephits are small, flying, fire elementals who are indistinguishable from pools of lava when they stay motionless. They can superheat metal objects and breathe a cone of fire at hostiles. Mud Mephits resemble ordinary pools of mud when motionless, and can breathe a cone of mud at enemies, restraining them. Magma Mephits have a challenge rating of 1/2 and are from the basic rules, and Mud Mephits have a challenge rating of 1/4 and are from the monster manual. Magma Mephits appear in Conjure Elemental spells, as well as part of the Izzet League in the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, and in the Out of the Abyss adventure. Mud Mephits appear in the Total Package, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Princess of the Apocalypse, and Out of the Abyss. Stirges are tiny beasts that resemble large bats with the head and proboscis of a mosquito. Their legs end in strong pincers which they use to latch onto victims in order to drain their blood. Once satiated, they will fly off to digest their meals. In small numbers, Stirges are mere annoyances, but if enough attach onto a victim, they can quickly drain the unsuspecting hero dry. Stirges can be found most anywhere, from the coast to the mountains, from the forest to the deserts. Stirges have a challenge rating of 1/8 and can be found in the basic rules. They appear as part of the Conjure Animal or Conjure Phase spells, and in the adventures Hoard of the Dragon Queen, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and Tomb of Annihilation. When a sick or poisoned beholder has feverish dreams at night, these dreams can manifest as a tiny aberration known as a gazer. The gazer resembles the beholder who dreamed it into existence, but it's only 8 inches wide and has only 4 eye stalks. It follows its master around like a devoted puppy. Sometimes small packs of gazers will patrol the lair looking for easy prey. They can't speak, but they can mimic words and sentences like a parrot. A gazer can't be tamed by anyone but its creator, except through the use of magic or by bonding with a spellcaster as a familiar. Some beholders with wizard minions insist they take a gazer as a familiar, because they can see through the eyes of these creatures to keep tabs on their servants. Evil spellcasters who are interested in unusual familiars may bond with a gazer. Gazers prefer masters who bully and harass others. They attack and harass creatures smaller than them, and flee from anything larger that poses a threat. Gazers have a challenge rating of 1/2 and appear in Volo's Guide to Monsters. They also appear in Waterdeep Dragon Heist. To many, kobolds and goblins are almost indistinguishable in their traits and behavior. Both are seen as cowardly, foolish, and weak. But the reptilian kobolds have a strong social structure, are gifted craftspeople, and use cooperation to overcome physical obstacles and threats. Due to their diminutive stature, they are frequently enslaved by larger creatures, and thus live in constant fear of invasion and oppression. If left to themselves, kobolds are happy to live in their tunnels, raise their young, and seek magic to free their imprisoned god, Kurtlemak, who was a vassal of Tiamat. Kurtlemak was forever trapped in a labyrinth by a gnome god, which bred in kobolds a deep hatred and mistrust for gnomes and fey creatures who enjoy playing pranks. Kobolds are expert tunnelers, sometimes even hired by human settlers to build sewer systems and new villages. If treated well and generally left alone, they may build a warren and settle permanently in the town, expanding the sewer system as the town grows. Though since they stay underground for much of the time, the surface dwellers may go years without seeing one of their kobold neighbors. Kobolds were introduced as a playable race in Volo's Guide to Monsters. A general kobold has a challenge rating of 1/8 and has its stat block in the basic rules. They appear in a whole host of adventures, including Hoard of the Dragon Queen, Tomb of Annihilation, Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and Tales from the Yawning Portal. Goblins generally behave as bullies, lashing out at those they can dominate, while acting servile in the face of a stronger threat. Goblins set traps, snares, and lures all around their territory in the hope of capturing new slaves. A goblin tribe is organized in a 4-tiered caste system made up of lashers, hunters, gatherers, and pariahs. Lashers are at the top of the hierarchy and generally serve as the brains of the operation, designing traps, setting the strategy, and practicing arcane arts. They answer directly to the tribe's boss and impose their will with whips. Hunters are the brawn of the tribe, scouting, hunting, and defending. Gatherers collect food, check traps, steal, and even do a bit of farming. The pariahs are the goblins who have few discernible skills, and who are tasked with cleaning up and supervising the tribe's slaves. Goblins were also introduced as a playable race in Volo's Guide to Monsters. As monsters, they have a challenge rating of 1/4 and appear in the basic rules. They show up in pretty much every adventure ever made. Gnolls are feral, hyena-headed humanoids who devour the flesh of those they kill. Gnolls came into being during the days in which the demon lord Yinogu encroached upon the material plane, creating destruction as he marched his way across the land. Hyenas trailed behind him, scavenging whatever he left behind. These hyenas were transformed into the first gnolls. They rarely made permanent settlements, instead nomadically roaming the countryside, attacking weakly defended settlements, razing them to the ground. They scavenge weapons and armor and eat the dead. Then they move on to the next unsuspecting settlement. There is no goodness in the heart of a gnoll. They form no alliances and cannot be taught or coerced into putting aside their bloodlust. Regular gnolls have a challenge rating of 1/2 and can be found in the basic rules. They appear in Out of the Abyss, Princes of the Apocalypse, random encounter tables in Xanathar's Guide, among many other adventures. Kuo-toa are degenerate fish-like creatures who used to live along the shores and islands of the surface world. They were driven underground by the humanoids and could no longer abide sunlight. When the Mind Flayers conquered the world, they captured and enslaved the simple Kuo-toa. Their minds were not resilient enough to withstand the oppressive measures of the Mind Flayers. By the time the Mind Flayers abandoned them, the prolonged psychic subjugation endured by the Kuo-toa had driven them mad. Driven by this madness and a well-earned sense of paranoia, the Kuo-toa gained an extreme religious fervor, inventing gods to protect them against threats. However, with the residual mental energy left behind by the Mind Flayers, if enough Kuo-toa believe in a god, the combined mental energy of their belief can make the god manifest physically. Kuo-toa themselves are armed with nets, spears, and sticky shields that can be used to snag the weapons of unsuspecting attackers. They have a challenge rating of 1/4 and can be found in the Monster Manual. They show up in many adventures, including Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Out of the Abyss, Princes of the Apocalypse, and random Underdark encounter tables in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Death dogs are ugly, mangy, two-headed hounds that roam plains and deserts, hungering for humanoid flesh. They'll attack all travelers and explorers who cross their path, and their saliva carries a foul disease that causes the victim's flesh to slowly rot and fall off the bone. They have a challenge rating of 1 and can be found in the basic rules. They appear in Out of the Abyss and in random encounter tables. Most of a vampire's victims become vampire spawn, which are ravenous creatures with a vampire's hunger for blood, but under the control of the vampire who created them. They only become true, independent vampires if they're allowed to draw blood from the vampire who created them. Few vampires are willing to grant such a gift. If the creator dies, the vampire spawn gain their free will. A spawn has many of the same powers and weaknesses of a true vampire, but they lack the ability to shapeshift, to create new vampires, to charm victims, or to escape as mist if the situation turns dire. While a true vampire has a challenge rating of 13 and has legendary actions and resistances, a vampire spawn has a challenge rating of 5. Its stat block can be found in the basic rules. They appear in Curse of Strahd, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, random urban encounter tables in Xanathar's Guide to Everything, Tales of the Yawning Portal, and Hoard of the Dragon Queen. Gnomes are curious, inventive, and full of gregarious joy. They make pretty formidable wizards, not least because they get a +2 to intelligence. They also have dark vision to make visual contact with hostiles in unlit environments. Their gnomish cunning gives them advantage on wisdom, intelligence, and charisma saving throws, hopefully keeping them from being dominated or neutralized by other spellcasters. This mini could also be used for an important NPC in Hoard of the Dragon Queen, Jamna Gleamsilver. The Gnome Wizard is one of 6 figures in this set that includes an invisible variant. We won't show all of them as they're the same figure, just made in transparent plastic. Seeing the overwhelming power of a Kraken in person can be a transformational event. Some see the Kraken as a divine power and seek to appease the monster through veneration and servitude. Some of these supplicants are offered power of their own by the awesome beast and become Kraken Priests. Krakens are dimly aware of their priest's thoughts and can push aside the priest's personality and take over their body directly when necessary, becoming the eyes, ears, and mouth of the beast. Kraken Priests inevitably have their appearance changed when they initially come under the sway of a Kraken. Their eyes may become ink black, or they may develop a suckered tentacle for a tongue. These manifestations of the Kraken's influence intensify when the Kraken is directly controlling the priest to utter its dire pronouncements. They were introduced in Volo's Guide to Monsters and have a challenge rating of 5. Also of note, this miniature is mislabeled as a Tridrone. Mezzoloths make up the bulk of the Yugoloth population. Yugoloths are fiends of the lower planes who are notorious for their shifting, self-serving loyalty. They can be reasoned with, but not trusted, as they will always take whatever deal provides them the best outcome. Mezzoloths are human-sized insect creatures who serve as foot soldiers in the Yugoloth armies. Driven by violence and reward, they're armed with lethal claws on each of their 4 arms, but typically wield a trident in 2 of them. If surrounded, they can exhale toxic fumes that can poison those around them. They can then teleport to a place of safety. They have a challenge rating of 5 and can be found in the monster manual. They appear in Princess of the Apocalypse, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and Tomb of Annihilation. Known as Urds, a few kobolds are randomly hatched with leathery wings that allow them to fly. The wings are seen as gifts of Tiamat, the Dragon Queen, but ordinary kobolds are resentful of Urds and do not get along with them. An old kobold legend speaks of Keruliak, a winged godling servant of Kurtulmak, the kobold god, who betrayed his master in some way. Kobolds see Urds as Kurulak's favorites, and project their resentment and suspicion onto their winged brothers and sisters. Winged kobolds have a challenge rating of 1/4 and can be found in the monster manual. They appear in random encounter tables. Nilbog is the name given to a goblin possessed by the spirit of the goblin trickster god. It arises when goblins form a host with other goblinoids like bugbears and hobgoblins. Goblins dwell at the bottom of the goblinoid pecking order, but the threat of a Nilbog appearing keeps the stronger goblinoids from inflicting too much cruelty upon the goblins. A Nilbog can be placated with comfortable lodging, good food, and freedom to do as it likes. Hobgoblins try to guard against possible Nilbogs by taking the most obvious goblin candidate, the one who is the crudest and most obnoxious, and giving it the title of Jester. It's allowed to misbehave as much as it likes, and live in relative luxury in the Hobgoblin's command center. Nilbogs have ways of turning the tables against those that attack it, but if its host is killed, the Nilbog would just possess another suitable goblin in the area. Nilbogs were introduced in Volo's Guide to Monsters and have a challenge rating of 1. The Flesh Gnawers are an even more feral and vicious tribe of savage gnolls. They forego using ranged weapons like spears and longbows, and instead rush into battle with nothing but a pair of short swords and their ragged teeth. They're able to dash about the battlefield, jumping from one hapless victim to the next. Their stat block can be found in Volo's Guide to Monsters. They have a challenge rating of 1.
This particular mini is armed with a short sword and a flail, while a flesh gnawer is armed with 2 short swords. It's the gnoll Flynn that's known for its magical flail. A Flend is a particularly robust and powerful Gnoll that serves as the single leader of its warband, giving Gnolls around it an extra bite attack per turn. It carries a flail imbued with Yinogu's magic. When attacking, the Flend can make 3 attacks with the flail, each head delivering a different effect: pain, paralysis, and disorientation. The Flend can also pull out a longbow if its prey attempts to run away. A Flend has a challenge rating of 9 and is also found in Volo's Guide to Monsters.
The theocratic rulers of the Kuo-toa are called archpriests, whose fervent belief allows them to manifest the power of a high cleric. Their role is to force all of the Kuo-toa in their domain to worship a particular chosen god. They are able to bestow spellcasting abilities onto favored underlings called whips. Generally, a few of these whips are also the archpriest's children. The whips fight to the death to claim the throne once the archpriest dies. Whips are second-level spellcasters armed with a few cleric spells, such as Shield of Faith, Bane, and Sacred Flame. They also carry pincher staves to grapple enemies. They have a challenge rating of 1 and are found in the Monster Manual. They appear in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Out of the Abyss, and Princes of the Apocalypse. Modrons are beings of absolute law who adhere to a very strict hive-like hierarchy. They hail from the plane of Mechanus. Modrons of a specific type are only able to interact with others of the same rank and those of 1 rank higher than them and 1 rank lower. Quadrones receive their commands from pentadrones and then in turn command the tridrones beneath them. Quadrones are astute combatants and serve as artillery and field officers in Modron armies. They are armed with crossbows and can also attack with their fists in close quarters. They have a challenge rating of 1 and can be found in the Monster Manual. They appear in Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Humans in 5th edition can start with a variant set of abilities they can choose from during character creation. In lieu of one of its ability score increases, the human variant begins with a feat. This option can give your starting bard a leg up on the competition. Some possible starting feats for a bard include Alert to help with initiative, Actor to help with charisma and mimicry, Crossbow Expert, Great Weapon Master, Lucky, Sharpshooter, or Warcaster, among many others. Humans, with their inventiveness and flexibility, make great jack-of-all-trades bards. Dragonborn are proud, strong, and robust warriors who make excellent up-close fighters. They receive a +2 to strength and a +1 to charisma to use when intimidation may be called for. Their draconic heritage gives them a particular breath weapon and damage resistance. This mini could potentially also be used for the NPC Thrakis in Waterdeep Dragon Heist. The Slotty are the counterpart and mortal enemy of the Modron. The overlord of the Modron, Primus, long ago created a geometrically complex stone which he imbued with the magic and power of law. He sent the stone out into limbo in the hopes of bringing order to chaos. The stone absorbed such great amounts of chaotic energy that it began spawning horrors that became known as the Slotty, agents of pure chaos that loathed the ordered Modron. There are multiple types of Slotty, differentiated by their color. Gray Slotty are second only to their masters, the Death Slotty, in power and ability. Gray Slotty can transform into humanoids and have mastered the use of the greatsword. They are innate spellcasters who are able to plane shift and regenerate. Slotty are created by implanting humanoids with their eggs, infecting them with a transformative disease. The Slotty often assume the guise of their former hosts when traveling back to the material plane to sow discord and chaos. A Gray Slod has a challenge rating of 9 and can be found in the Monster Manual. It appears in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Tomb of Annihilation, and in the random Urban Encounters tables in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Wereboars are uncivilized, ill-tempered brutes who frequently form small clans in the hill country. They can shapeshift between their humanoid form, which is generally stocky with short stiff hair, to a hybrid form which is shown here in this miniature. They can also assume the form of a full boar. When in hybrid or boar form, they can impale enemies with their tusks to infect them with wereboar lycanthropy. They're generally wary of strangers, but have been known to ally with orcs. Their stat block can be found in the basic rules. They have a challenge rating of 4, and they appear in Princes of the Apocalypse, random encounter tables in Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and in Tomb of Annihilation. Sometimes when the ocean claims a life, that life is not extinguished but transformed. Those lost souls reemerge from the depths encrusted with coral and barnacles. Lungs that once breathed only air now able to breathe water as well. The source of this transformation is unknown to much of the surface world. Legends warn of the dangers of falling in love with a merfolk. The truth is that much lurks along the ocean floor that can claim the lost souls as minions, whether by bargain or curse. Once transformed, sea spawn cannot linger on the surface for long without courting death. Sea spawn have varied transformations that affect their abilities. They may have any combination of the following: the strong jaws of a shark, the poisonous quills of a sea urchin, or the tentacles of an octopus. Sea spawn have a challenge rating of 1 and can be found in Bolo's Guide to Monsters. Gibbering mouthers are among the most wicked, depraved, and disgusting terrors that can result from foul sorcery. An amalgamation of eyes, mouths, and the liquefied matter of the sorcerer's victims, this creature gibbers incoherent madness and is compelled to consume everything it can reach. The gibbering of its many mouths, each with a different voice, some screaming in agony, others babbling dark secrets, some moaning in ecstasy, cause most that hear them to flee in terror, though others are driven temporarily mad or stand transfixed in terror. Gibbering mouthers have a challenge rating of 2 and can be found in the basic rules. They appear in Out of the Abyss, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Dragon Heist, random Underdark encounters in Xanathar's Guide to Everything, Tales from the Yawning Portal, and the Extra Life adventure Lost Laboratory of Qualish. Empyreans are the children of the gods of the upper planes. They're beautiful, statuesque, and pretty full of themselves. Their rather extreme moods can affect the environment around them. When they're in despair, rain clouds may form and flowers may wither. When they're jubilant, the sun shines, the birds sing, and the wildlife frolic in the grass. While most Empyreans are unaligned, some can become evil after being corrupted while visiting the lower planes, or after being cursed by evil gods. These Empyreans often make their way to the material planes, where they can rule over lesser beings. While they are ageless, they can be slain. When killed, their spirits return to the upper planes, where one of their parents can resurrect them if they choose to. Empyreans are legendary beings and innate spellcasters who can bolster allies and stun foes with their magical hammers. An Empyrean has a challenge rating of 23, which puts it on par with an ancient blue dragon, Baphomet, and Krakens. Their stat block is in the monster manual, and they appear in Dungeon of the Mad Mage and Tales of the Yawning Portal. Cyclopes are slow-witted isolationists who drive away anyone who encroaches on their territory. They live alone or in small family units in caves, ruins, or in small stone constructions they build themselves. They keep small herds of animals for food. They often live within walking distance of other Cyclopes, so they can meet during the day for trade or to seek mates. In combat, they can be physically imposing, but also easily outwitted by a clever foe. A Cyclops has a challenge rating of 6, and is found in the basic rules. They appear in Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, Rise of Tiamat, Tomb of Annihilation, and in random encounter tables in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. To hill giants, food is life. Food is power. Luckily, they have a constitution that matches their size, so even when they eat spoiled, rotten, or discarded food, they rarely get sick. They have no conception of sickness, so when one of their kind becomes unable to keep their food down, they find it a very ill omen and a message from their god Grillantor. The ill giant is separated and restrained, visited daily by a hill giant priest or chieftain who tries to read the portents in the wretched up bile. If the sickness passes, the giant returns to the herd. If not, it is starved to the point of madness, so that Grillantor's hunger can be given a mouth in the world. It remains restrained unless unleashed upon a threatening enemy. The mouth of Grillantor is driven by a hungry madness and acts randomly in combat. It has a challenge rating of 6 and is found in Bolo's Guide to Monsters. Hill giants are primitive, selfish, dim-witted brutes who are driven by nothing except for a desire for more food. They hunt and raid, using uprooted trees and rocks as weapons. They bully smaller creatures into bringing them food. They would have died out long ago if not for their immense size and strength. Hill giants don't realize that the giant ordning exists. They just know that other kinds of giants are larger and stronger than they are, and so they have to do what they say. Hill giants have a challenge rating of 5 and are found in the basic rules. This miniature is the female counterpart to the Hill Giant mini found in the Storm King's Thunder set. Hill giants appear in Storm King's Thunder and Tales from the Yawning Portal. To stone giants, the surface world is an ephemeral, alien landscape. Exposed to constant wind and flowing water, nothing on the surface world is permanent. Therefore, nothing that happens there matters. Deals made on the surface world need not be honored. Art created there is worthless. Life there is forfeit. Sometimes stone giants may make pilgrimages to the surface world out of curiosity, to seek inspiration for their art, or because they are banished from their homes. If they aren't able to find refuge under stone, they will become dreamwalkers, driven mad by isolation, shame, and the unending alien surroundings. Believing their actions no longer matter, they become agents of chaos and destruction. They petrify and collect items that seem valuable to their addled minds, attaching them to their bodies, until they become almost fully encased in stone. Stone giant dreamwalkers have a challenge rating of 10 and can be found in Volo's Guide to Monsters. Fire giants define their worth in the ordning not only by their size and strength, but by their skill at the forge. Those who are gifted with more brawn than brains usually are assigned menial tasks like operating the bellows or shoveling coal. But there is one role in which only the mightiest fire giant can excel: the Dreadnought. Dreadnoughts wield 2 massive, spiked shields. The interior of the shield is filled with hot coals before combat. Dreadnoughts are always on the front line of battle. When not in a combat situation, the Dreadnought maintains his strength by using the shields to move large amounts of rock and minerals around the foundry. The fire giant Dreadnought has a challenge rating of 14, which is on par with an adult black dragon. It can be found in Volo's Guide to Monsters. Frost giants are fierce warriors with blue skin and white hair who survive by raiding coastal cities, pillaging what they need. They value only brute strength and skill in battle. They live in high mountain peaks or glacial rifts. Value among their clan is determined by musculature, battle scars, and trophies collected in victories. They repurpose weapons and armor collected from raids into items usable by them, stringing dozens of shields together to make armor, for example. The greatest frost giant jarls wear armor made of dragon scales, or wield picks and mauls made of dragon's teeth or claws. Frost giants have a challenge rating of 8 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in Storm King's Thunder, Tales from the Yawning Portal, and Tomb of Annihilation. Bearded devils are humanoids with pointed ears, scaly skin, a long tail, sharp claws, and snake-like growths that extend from their chins, which gives them their name. They use these growths to lash out and poison foes. They're also armed with saw-toothed glaives, which they can use to open festering wounds on their enemies. Bearded devils are employed as shock troops by the archdevils. They revel in violence and have a challenge rating of 3. They can be found in the basic rules and appear in Dragon Heist, Tomb of Annihilation, and Rise of Tiamat. Arcanoloths are jackal-headed humanoid Yugoloths who can assume any form they like, though usually they appear as well-groomed and finely robed humanoids. They use this guise to gain the trust of others with whom they want to negotiate. They are highly intelligent spellcasters who lust for power and knowledge. They can speak and write all languages, making them excellent diplomats, record keepers, and negotiators. They are often brought in to negotiate in highly sensitive matters, and only demand information or magical items which they can exchange for information in return. They are 16th level spellcasters and have a challenge rating of 12, which puts them on par with an Archmage or Archdruid. They appear in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Curse of Strahd, and Tomb of Annihilation. Tieflings, despite what you may think, do not make natural rogues. They tend to be charismatic and intelligent, but have no innate talents and dexterity. Having resistance to fire damage, dark vision, and some innate spellcasting abilities can come in handy in the roguish profession, however. The Thaumaturgy cantrip can be used as a distraction, and the darkness spell can allow the rogue to get a sneak attack off on an unsuspecting foe. Depending on the bloodline of your tiefling, you may instead be able to become invisible, to disguise yourself, to charm others, or to create a mage hand, among many other abilities. Tieflings as a playable race were detailed in the basic rules. Neogi are hateful alien slavers that look like large spiders with an eel's neck and head. They can be found in far-flung locations on the material plane, as well as in the Feywild, Shadowfell, and the astral and ethereal planes. They assimilated the Umber Hulks of another world to use their physical labor to construct their spider-like ships with which they traverse the various planes. Neogi masters use magic to dominate the minds of others, and have no sense of emotions or feelings. They believe the weak are dominated by the strong. There is a strict hierarchy even within the Neogi. Differences in rank are denoted by dyes, tattoos, and transformational magic. Each Neogi can identify its betters, and will defer to them lest they face harsh punishment. Neogi Masters are 7th level spellcasters and have a challenge rating of 4, and are found in Volo's Guide to Monsters. Ulatharid very rarely emerge as tadpoles from an Elder Brain's brine pool, and transform into a larger, stronger mind flayer with 6 tentacles instead of 4. Ulatharids generally take a leadership position in the colony, invested with power and authority by the Elder Brain. Sometimes, though, the Ulatharid is seen as a rival for power by the Elder Brain, which tries to manipulate and quash its ambitions. When an Ulatharid tires of sharing power with an Elder Brain, it may gather several mind flayers and leave the colony. When it's ready, an Ulatharid may use its psionically enhanced extractor staff to sacrifice its life by extracting its brain and placing it in a brine pool to eventually grow into a new Elder Brain. Ulatharids have a challenge rating of 9 and can be found in Volo's Guide to Monsters. They appear in Dungeon of the Mad Mage and the Rakma adventure. Tritons are native to the elemental plane of water, where they claim the responsibility of containing the threats posed by evil elemental-based foes native to that plane, such as the Krakens and the Sahuagin. When they learned that many of these foes had escaped to the material plane, they put together an expeditionary force to follow them, setting up protectorates in the oceans of the material world. Tritons make mighty warriors with increases to strength, constitution, and charisma. Tritons have limited control over air and water, being able to create fog clouds, gusts of wind, and walls of water. The Triton playable race was detailed in Volo's Guide to Monsters. Aasimar are natural paladins, placed in the world to serve as guardians of law and good. Patrons of angels are expected to be a beacon of hope, striking fear into the heart of evil and leading the cause of justice. Aasimar have a +2 to their charisma scores, which is great for the spellcasting ability of a paladin. They also have dark vision, healing hands, and can cast the light cantrip. There are a few sub-races available with the Aasimar. A fallen Aasimar might synchronize well with an Oath of Vengeance or Oathbreaker paladin, though the wings on this miniature would not match the skeletal, ghostly wings of a fallen Aasimar. Protector Aasimars have a limited ability to fly. Scourge Aasimars radiate bright light from their eyes and mouth, dealing radiant damage to those around them. The Aasimar playable race was detailed in Volo's Guide to Monsters. The Nameless One is the protagonist from the 1999 video game by Black Isle Studios, Planescape Torment. He is a heavily scarred immortal who awakens at the beginning of the game without his memories. He has an expansive backstory that I will leave you to discover in the game, which is available on PC and mobile. In Dungeons & Dragons, this miniature can easily be used as a human, half-orc, or Goliath player character. When a storm giant approaches the end of its long, natural life, it may seek to find an escape from death. Some use their powerful connection to the elements to disperse themselves into nature, literally transforming themselves into semi-conscious storms. They may become a hurricane forever traversing the ocean, a blizzard unendingly raging on a mountain peak, or a thunderstorm traveling up and down a coast. A storm giant quintessent can revert back to its giant form for a short time as needed. It has legendary and layer actions. When in its storm form, the quintessent can't be targeted by attacks, spells, or other effects. It has a challenge rating of 16, putting it on par with an adult blue dragon or an iron golem. It can be found in Volo's Guide to Monsters. A frost giant's place in the Ordning is based on its prowess in battle. Some seek whatever advantage they can get, the most desperate willing to seek the favor of Vaprak, a rapacious god of strength and hunger worshipped by ogres and trolls. The giant is then tempted with dreams of glory, followed by horrific nightmares of cannibalism. Those who do not flee from the nightmares are sent a troll by Vaprek. If the frost giant can devour the entire troll, it will become an everlasting one, gaining great strength, furious rage, and the troll's regenerative abilities. They then frequently become the jarls of their clan, and hold on to the position of power for decades. The frost giant is beholden to Vaprek, and if he doesn't heed his visions, his wounds and injuries will begin to heal wrong, resulting in discolored scars, extra digits, or even extra heads. The touch of Vaprek can no longer be hidden then, and the Everlasting One is killed or exiled by its clan. An Everlasting One has a challenge rating of 12 and is found in Volo's Guide to Monsters. A Goblin Hucker is an ogre outfitted with a hobgoblin invention that acts as a portable trebuchet strapped to a leather harness. It doesn't inhibit the ogre's movement or fighting ability. The sling is large enough to hurl a large rock or a flaming cask of pitch, but it is specifically designed to fling goblins. The goblins wear spiked helmets and deal piercing damage on impact. The goblin rarely survives the experience. The Goblin Hucker was introduced in Storm King's Thunder. Storm Giants maintain the highest rank in the giant ordning. They are contemplative, wise, and benevolent seers who live so far above the land or below the sea that surface dwellers rarely lay eyes on one in their lifetime. They seek to restore what was lost when the giant empire fell, watching the skies for signs of their god's favor. A storm giant driven to anger or corrupted by greed can be a terrible threat. A storm giant has a challenge rating of 13, which places it alongside adult white dragons and beholders. They can be found in the basic rules and feature in Storm King's Thunder.
This set includes a lot of variants. 17 minis had both an A and a B variant, plus the Kuo-toa and the Kuo-toa Whip, the Goblin and the Nilbog, the Gnoll and the Gnoll Flesh Gnawer, the Kobold and the Winged Kobold are all essentially variants too. So if you count all the A's and B's separately, this set technically includes 60 minis, not including the Invisibles. On the other hand, if you count all those unlabeled variants, like the Kuo-toa, the Gnolls, and the Kobolds, as single sculpts, this set included 39 truly unique miniatures. I wanted to note that when we open these minis, often some arrive bent. Usually it's just a weapon, but sometimes whole minis are a bit tilted off their base. I generally show you these as I receive them. They can generally be fixed by putting them under hot water, reshaping them, and then dunking them into ice water to reset. Sometimes a mini will arrive broken though. I'll let you know when this happens, but I attempt to fix them before showcasing them to you. This usually just involves a dab of super glue and a bit of patience. For Monster Menagerie 3, we didn't order a full case because I already had a lot of them, so we just filled out what we were missing on the aftermarket. So we're not going to show you what we got in each box, and some of the ones that were bent may have been bent because they were bought used and not because they came that way out of the box.
There's a few things to say about the Monster Menagerie 3 set. While most sets come with figures that contain variants, like this Frost Giant here, one of which has a sword and one has an axe, this is the only set so far that has rare characters that have variants. Normally, there are 12 rares in an Icons of the Realm set, and if you order a case, which is 32 booster boxes, you'll get one of each of those rares. So this set has those 12 rares, but 5 of them have variants. So these are the ones down here. The Aasimar Paladin, the Triton Fighter, the Arcanoloth, the Tiefling Rogue, and the Ulatharid. So when you get a case of these, you're only going to get one of each of these rares. So you'll get one Aasimar Paladin, you'll get one Ulatharid, and you will not get the other one. The only way to get the 5 that you're missing would be to go on the aftermarket and track them down, or just to try your luck with other booster boxes. So if you're a completionist and you want one of everything, you're going to be out of luck getting a case of these miniatures. If that doesn't bother you, you will get, one of every major character. So you're going to get an Ulatharid, just he may have a spell effect or he may not. So if that's okay with you, you just should know that going into your purchase. Otherwise, this is a great set if you're playing Storm King's Thunder especially. It's really satisfying to open up one of these giant boxes and you get this big, heavy storm giant out of it. This is very much, pointed toward the Storm King's Thunder adventure. There's a lot of characters also in the Dungeon of the Mad Mage adventure, but of course, Dungeon of the Mad Mage pretty much has everything in it. So any set of miniatures you'll get will contribute to that game. This also includes a lot of the characters from Bolo's Guide to Monsters, as we talked about. So I don't think this should probably be your first choice of purchases if you're just trying to get started on your miniature collection. But if you are playing Storm King's Thunder and you have a pretty good selection of miniatures from the Storm King's Thunder Icons of the Realm set, and you're looking to round it out or give yourself a little bit of variety, go ahead and invest in a couple of boxes or bricks or cases of this set as your budget allows. I think the choices here are pretty amazing. There's some really fun creatures that you can use to design adventures around. A lot of these Volos variants of the giants are very interesting. It can give you a couple of sessions of interesting roleplay with the Everlasting One and the Quintessent and the Dreadnought and the Mouth of Galanter. There's a lot of things to have fun with here. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, please leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, I hope you'll follow us on social media. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, where we talk about what's coming up. And if you leave messages below or like or subscribe to our channel, it helps us out and it lets more people find our videos. So that's everything for today. I hope you're doing well, and we'll see you next time on the Gallant Goblin.